Good morning and welcome to the news around the globe on Aneke TV, your trusted source for the latest stories making headlines across Nigeria and around the world. I am Deborah Wakova, glad to have you join us. And now to the headlines. Vice President Shatima returns from Global Summit, reiterates Nigeria's call for reforms and enhanced global security. All 24 kidnapped Kebbi schoolgirls regained freedom after 7 days in captivity. Federal government clarifies position on open grazing, says transition to ranching will be gradual. House of Representatives uncovers 1.65 trillion naira liability linked to dormant PIA environmental cleanup funds. And on the foreign scene, U.S. President Donald Trump softens stance on Ukraine peace deadline. Mass protests erupt in Madrid and Mexico City as thousands march against gender-based violence. And now to the details of the news. Vice President Kashim Shettima has returned to Abuja after representing President Bola Tinubu at the G20 Leaders Summit in South Africa and the 7th AU-EU Summit in Angola. At the AU-EU meeting, he conveyed President Tinubu's renewed call for comprehensive global governance reform, including Africa's demand for permanent veto-holding seats on the United Nations. He emphasized the need for equitable partnerships centered on African-led peace and security frameworks. At the G20 summit, the vice president pressed for reforms in the management of global financial flows, stressing that development countries continue to bear the brunt of recurring sovereign debt crisis. He further advocated for a global value addition mechanism that guarantees African mineral-producing communities a fair share of earnings at the source. President Tinubu also urged world leaders to commit to ethical standards guiding the development and deployment of artificial intelligence. Meanwhile, President Tinubu has ordered a full security cordon around forested areas in Kwara following heightened terrorist activities. The directive mandates intensified area surveillance by the Nigerian Air Force across Kwara, Niger and Kebbi corridors to dislodge criminal hideouts and fast-track rescue operations. The president said the 24-hour operation must work in full synergy with ground troops to secure vulnerable communities. All 24 students abducted from Government Girls Comprehensive Secondary School, Maga in Kebbi State have regained freedom after 7 days in captivity. The girls were taken on November 17th when armed men attacked the school shortly after a military detachment withdrew from the community, heightening concerns about school security in the northwest. Their release comes amid renewed discussions over the vulnerability of rural learning centers. President Bola Tinubu confirmed their rescue in a statement commending the joint security operation that led to the breakthrough. The presidency also links the Kebbi development to recent progress recorded in Kwara State, where 38 worshippers kidnapped in Iruku were freed after coordinated action by the military and local volunteers. The incident underscores the persistent challenge of mass abductions from schools, a trend that has continued since the 2014 Chibok attack. While efforts were ongoing for the Kebbi victims, armed men invaded St. Mary's Papiri Private Catholic Secondary School in Niger State on November 21st, abducting students and teachers. Data from various civil society reports indicate that more than 1,680 students and teachers have been kidnapped from schools across Nigeria since 2014. The federal government has clarified that it has not issued any directive imposing a nationwide ban on open grazing, contrary to reports in some media outlets. The Minister of Livestock Development, E.D. Maiha, explained that the administration is implementing a phased transition to modern ranching practices rather than enforcing an abrupt prohibition. He said no official policy currently exists outlawing open grazing. According to the minister, government efforts are focused on revitalizing the 273 gazetted grazing reserves across the country, covering more than 4.5 million hectares. He stated that the upgraded of these reserves will convert them into functional businesses hubs for integrated livestock activities, enhance further production, and controlled grazing systems. This, he added, will reduce friction between herders and farmers while attracting private sector investment. Maiha stressed that the transition is designed to be gradual to ensure sustainability and minimize disruption to livelihoods. He urged state governments to work closely with the ministry in developing infrastructure that supports livestock mobility, animal health services, and market access. The government says its long-term goal is to modernize the livestock economy, foster peace, and boost national food security. The House of Representatives Committee on South-South Development Commission has expressed concern over the failure to operationalize two critical funds created under the Petroleum Industry Act (PIA). The committee said the non-activation of the Abandonment and Decommunization Fund and the Environmental Remediation Fund has denied the region an estimated 1.65 trillion naira meant for cleanup of polluted communities since 2021. Chairman Julius Babojo Pondi said the delay undermines environmental justice in oil-producing areas. During an interactive session, lawmakers observed that the decommunization fund should have accumulated up to 1.1 trillion naira, while the remediation fund ought to have grown to about 550 billion naira. Pondi said the purpose of this fund is to ensure the oil companies do not transfer environmental liabilities such as damaged farmland and contaminated water to impoverished host communities. In a related development, a special plenary session on national security witnessed strong criticism of the administration's handling of the current security challenges. Chairman of the Committee on Petroleum Resources Upstream, Alhassan Ado Doguwa, described the security level, especially in northern Nigeria, as horrific and devastating. He warned that if urgent measures are not taken, the situation could threaten the political stability ahead of the 2027 general elections. Kano State Deputy Governor Comrade Aminu Abdul Salam Gwazo has urged Nigerian journalists to intensify scrutiny of political leaders and security agencies in the fight against insecurity. Addressing members of the Kano NUJ Correspondence Chapel, he said the media has a constitutional duty to hold authorities accountable and ensure they respond effectively to emerging security threats. Gwazo expressed concern that despite the presence of well-equipped security institutions, Nigeria is not adequately deploying modern technology to combat bandits and terrorists. He noted that criminal groups are increasingly using sophisticated tools to coordinate attacks, making it imperative for security agencies to adopt advanced surveillance and intelligence systems. He said citizens expect greater innovation in counter-terrorism operations. The deputy governor emphasized that the fear caused by insecurity now extends even to political leaders, underscoring the urgency of renewed action. While acknowledging Kano as one of the more stable states in the region, he called for immediate attention to reports of bandit attacks in communities bordering Katsina. He urged journalists to maintain pressure on institutions to fulfill their responsibilities without complacency. The federal government has commenced nationwide implementation of the Inspire Live online real-time classes initiative, a digital learning program designed to mitigate Nigeria's shortage of over 1.2 million teachers. The scheme targets primary and secondary school pupils across the country and aims to provide uninterrupted access to the quality education regardless of location. Education Minister Dr. Chinja Lausa said the platform is currently streaming daily classes for GSS1, GSS2, and SS2 learners from Monday to Friday between 8 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Lessons are delivered by certified master teachers through Cisco WebEx. He confirmed that the program will expand to cover all levels from primary 1 to senior secondary 3 as deployment progresses. To support the rollout, the ministry has directed all commissioners of education to nominate state focal officers responsible for coordination. Schools participating in the program are required to provide basic ICT infrastructure and internet access, while principals are mandated to supervise registration and ensure compliance. The Lagos State Ministry of Transportation has confirmed the arrest of a truck driver whose attempt to evade Vehicle Inspection Service (VIS) officers caused extensive damage along the Ojota-Maryland corridor. The vehicle had been flagged for multiple violations, including a shattered windscreen, faulty brakes, expired documentation, and an unsecured container before the driver sped off at high speed. According to officials, the reckless escape attempt resulted in a dangerous chase through Maryland, during which the truck damaged 3 vehicles and endangered pedestrians. VIS operatives eventually intercepted and impounded the truck after bringing the situation under control. The ministry commended the officers for acting swiftly and professionally to prevent further harm. Authorities say the driver will be prosecuted for the infractions and for endangering public safety. The ministry reiterated its commitment to strict enforcement of traffic regulations, stressing that non-compliant heavy-duty vehicles remain a major risk on Lagos roads. It urged all motorists to adhere to safety standards to prevent avoidable. Former Anambra State Governor and Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi has called on the church to take the lead in shaping youth values and strengthening community development, warning that Nigeria's future depends on the character and productivity of its young population. He made the call at the just concluded 4th Enugu Diocesan Synod held at the Jubilee Hall of the Holy Ghost Cathedral, Enugu, where our correspondent now reports. Speaking at the 4th Enugu Diocesan Synod held at Holy Ghost Cathedral, Enugu, Mr. Obi described the church as a vital institution for moral formation, stressing that education without values cannot build a stable and progressive society. He expressed concern over deepening poverty and insecurity across the country, linking them to the growing number of idle and unemployed youth. Mr. Obi urged churches to intensify skills development, mentorship, and entrepreneurship support for young people. The former governor also criticized the celebration of corrupt public officials in religious spaces, insisting that the church must promote accountability and uphold ethical standards. Highlighting Nigeria's vast uncultivated farmland, Mr. Obi called for greater youth involvement in agriculture to boost food security, drawing comparisons with smaller nations achieving higher productivity. He concluded by urging religious institutions to return to their core mission of raising disciplined, value-driven, and productive citizens capable of transforming the nation over the next 2 decades. I'm Deborah Wakoba, Aneke TV News. This news broadcast is coming to you live from Aneke TV. Remember, you can stay connected with us on social media platforms Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all at Aneke TV. Now, a quick recap of the major stories making the news. Vice President Shettima returned from global summits, reiterates Nigerians' call for reforms and enhanced global security. All 24 kidnapped Kebbi schoolgirls regained freedom after 7 days in captivity. Federal government clarifies position on open grazing, says transition to ranching will be gradual. House of Representatives on the covers 1.65 trillion naira liability linked to dormant PIA environmental cleanup funds. And coming up shortly, U.S. President Donald Trump softens stance on Ukraine peace deadline. Mass protests erupt in Madrid and Mexico City as thousands march against gender-based violence. We'll be right back.
The Insight with Uche Osai.
Having the political will to confront whatever is the challenges.
Igbo man wrestles with
the tortoise that had a lot of ingenuity, a lot of ideas, and the tireless.
It will take the bold mind of government in power to say, let there be electoral reform, no matter who sorts is God.
I was there. We did everything. All of us came and supported him with our last blood.
In-depth analysis, expert views, real voices, uncover the stories shaping Nigeria today. Deep dive, honest, unfiltered, only on The Insight with Uche Osai on Aneke TV. Join us.
Still on the news. The United States President Donald Trump has withdrawn the Thanksgiving deadline earlier set for Ukraine to accept a U.S.-backed peace proposal in its war with Russia. Speaking aboard Air Force One, Trump said negotiations were progressing and that Russia had made some concessions, but added that the only meaningful deadline was when it is over. He said the U.S. remains committed to brokering a settlement. The president dismissed a media report alleging that his envoy, Steve Witkoff, coached a Russian aide on how to present the proposal to Washington. Trump argued that such guidance is normal in diplomatic negotiations, adding that Witkoff is likely providing similar advisory services to the Ukrainian side. He insisted that the objective is to reach a workable agreement for all parties. Trump confirmed that we'd call for visit Moscow next week for further discussions with President Vladimir Putin. He also said Jared Kushner, who helped negotiate the Gaza ceasefire, is involved in the process. The president maintained that Ukraine should consider a swift agreement as Russia currently holds strategic advantages and may gain more territory if the conflict continues. Marched through the streets of Madrid and Mexico City to mark the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. The demonstrations drew attention to rising cases of femicide and gender-based violence globally, underscoring the United Nations estimate that a woman or girl is killed by a partner or family member every 10 minutes. Protesters called for stronger protection systems for women. In Mexico City, activists highlighted the country's persistent crisis of impunity, where an average of 10 women are murdered daily. Many cases are classified as femicides, reflecting gender-specific motives behind the crimes. Demonstrators demanded greater accountability from authorities and increased support for victims' families. The event amplified public frustration over weak prosecution and inadequate prevention measures. In Spain, where women constitute more than 90% of intimate partner violence victims, marchers called for expanded funding for shelters, legal support and anti-violence programs. The protest formed part of the UN's 16 Days of Activism campaign, which challenges government to prioritize women's safety and enforce stronger laws against both physical and digital forms of violence. A large-scale drone attack launched by Russian forces on the southeastern Ukrainian city of Zaporizhzhia has left 12 people hospitalized and caused widespread infrastructure damage. Regional Governor Ivan Fedorov said the late-night strikes destroyed shops, severely damaged 7 apartment blocks, and affected several other buildings. Multiple vehicles were also smashed during the attack. Emergency services were deployed to 12 different locations to contain fires and rescue trapped residents. The attack has intensified concerns over civilian safety in frontline cities still under Ukrainian government control but exposed to continuous cross-border strikes. Zaporizhzhia city remains in Ukrainian hands despite large parts of the surrounding region being occupied by Russia. In a counterclaim, Russia's appointed official for the occupied portion of the region accused Ukraine of targeting power infrastructure in the controlled areas, resulting in power outages affecting 40,000 customers. Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te has announced a supplementary defense budget of 40 billion Taiwan dollars, strengthening the island's readiness against what it described as escalating military threats from China. Lai said investment reflects Taiwan's commitment to self-defense and its refusal to compromise on national security. The new spending will reinforce Taiwan's asymmetric defense capabilities, which aim to counter China's military superiority with agile and highly flexible systems. The United States had repeatedly urged Taipei to scale up domestic defense investment, a position supported by Washington's representatives in Taipei, Raymond Green. He described the allocation as a significant step toward preserving peace in Taiwan Strait. Under the proposal, Taiwan's defense expenditure is projected to reach 949.5 billion Taiwan dollar in 2027, exceeding 3% of GDP for the first time since 2009. China's Taiwan Affairs Office criticized the move, accusing Taipei of bowing to foreign influence and misallocating resources. Beijing warned that closer security cooperation with external powers could increase tensions and endanger regional stability. Nigerian trade surplus fell sharply by 35% in July, dropping to $1.39 billion from the $2.14 billion recorded in June. The Central Bank of Nigeria, in its monthly economic report, attributed the contraction to a 25% surge in total imports, coupled with a marginal reduction in export earnings. The country's import bill rose to $3.54 billion during the period, driven by increased inflows of non-oil goods and refined petroleum products. Non-oil imports grew by over 23% to $2.64 billion, while the importation of refined petroleum rose to $900 million. The CBN said the trend reflects rising domestic demand and global price movements. Total exports received dipped slightly by 0.8% to $4.93 billion due to weakened crude oil prices. Crude oil export revenue fell to $2.55 billion, down from $2.74 billion in June. However, gas exports rose to $1.10 billion on back of strong European winter demand. Non-oil exports also recorded modest growth, driven largely by mineral shipments. The bank noted that the figures underscores Nigerians' continued dependence on oil earnings. Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has presented a 4.237 trillion naira budget proposal for 2026 to the State House of Assembly, describing it as a budget of shared prosperity. The governor said the plan is designed to consolidate achievements recorded by his administration as it enters its final full year. He emphasized that the proposal reflects a strategic investment in infrastructure and human capital development. The budget estimates total revenue at 3.994 trillion naira, with internally generated revenue projected at 3.120 trillion naira. The breakdown shows 2.185 trillion naira allocated to capital expenditure and 2.52 trillion naira to recurrent obligations, leaving a deficit of 243.3 billion naira. Economic Affairs received the largest allocation of 1,372 trillion naira, reflecting ongoing investment in transportation, power and infrastructure. The health sector is allocated 338.4 billion naira, while education receives 249.1 billion naira to support school rehabilitation and teacher recruitment. The governor assured residents that all ongoing and newly initiated projects will be completed within the tenure. Turkish champions Galatasaray are intensifying efforts to sign Nigerian forward Ademola Lookman during the January transfer window. Lookman, who plays for Atlanta, is reportedly unsettled after a season marked by reduced playing time and strained relations with his coach, Piero Gasperini. The winger had a breakout campaign last season but has struggled to replicate his form. Sources indicate that Lookman has accepted a verbal offer with 9 million euros annually, with Galatasaray banking on their history of reviving the careers of top players. The pursuit is further strengthened by the influence of Super Eagles striker Victor Osimhen, who is said to be actively encouraging Lookman to join him in Istanbul. Club officials believe the partnership could significantly strengthen their Champions League ambitions. Atlanta, however, insists on the full activation of Lookman's 50 million euro release clause and have ruled out any discounts. The valuation poses a major challenge for Galatasaray, which may need to sell players or propose creative add-ons to finalize the deal. Negotiations are expected to intensify as the transfer window approaches. Chief Ike Naukafo, sponsor of the CIO Golf Classics, has announced plans to elevate the tournament into a major national tourism attraction. He said the prize money will be increased to 100 million naira or $75,000, whichever is higher, during the next edition in November 2026. The tournament, originally created as a birthday event, has now grown into a recognized competition affiliated with Kenya's Safari Tour. Okafor said the objective is to rotate the event across major Nigerian cities to attract international golfers and position Nigeria as a viable destination of golf tourism. He added that the country is yet to tap into the economic benefits associated with the sport, which generates substantial revenue for many Western nations. Hollywood actor Vin Diesel has publicly celebrated fellow star Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, describing their partnership in the Fast and Furious franchise as one of cinema's most dynamic collaborations. In a message shared on Instagram, Diesel practiced Johnson's performance in the upcoming film The Smashing Machine, where he plays MMA fighter Mark Kerr. Diesel said the production reflects Johnson's exceptional range and dedication, adding that the actor really did it in his latest role. He noted that their long-running collaboration has produced memorable moments on screen and a shared commitment to advancing the franchise. The two actors had previously enjoyed a public feud beginning in 2016. Their reconciliation in 2023 paved the way for Johnson's return to the franchise for Fast X Part 2, expected in 2026. Diesel's remarks signaled renewed unity among the principal cast as the production prepares for the next installment of the blockbuster series. Nigerian music executive Don Jazzy has stated that a reconciliation with his ex-wife Michelle Jackson is no longer possible because she has remarried. He made the clarification during an interactive session on X, responding to a fan who urged him to reconsider the relationship. Don Jazzy disclosed the past marriage in 2021, explaining that his commitment to his career led to this separation. Despite remaining single, Don Jazzy said he is fulfilled by his professional achievements and continues to prioritize his work. And finally, before we go, here's a recap of our top stories. Vice President Kashim Shettima has returned from Global Summit, reiterates Nigerians' call for reforms and enhanced global security. All 24 kidnapped Kebbi schoolgirls have regained their freedom after 7 days in captivity. Federal government has clarified position on open grazing, saying transition into ranching will be gradual. House of Representatives uncover 1.65 trillion naira liability linked to dormant PIA environmental cleanup funds. And on the foreign scene, U.S. President Donald Trump has softened his stance on Ukraine peace deadline. Mass protests have erupted in Madrid and Mexico City as thousands march against gender-based violence. That's the Aneke TV News at 9 a.m. For more news and live updates, follow us across all social media platforms, Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all at Aneke TV. On behalf of the producer Chidima Sogwa and the entire news team, I'm Deborah Wakuba. Thank you for watching.
The Arena with Chris Anibogo is the platform where we meet to take critical analysis of burning and topical issues and matters in the society as to proper solutions on making the society better.
You came into office, you locked the door to everybody. Nobody can even access you. You don't even play the politics.
Month in, month out, year in, year out. So where is the money going to? Where's the resources?
Whenever the economy is in a shambles, you find the government embracing pro-people